following shots are some stock shots that are the only surviving original camera negative material on Lost Horizon, and this does show the beauty of Joe Walker's cinematography. It's a shame that the studio didn't manage to keep the original negative of the completed movie, but there are a few minutes still left of these scenes that actually weren't used in the movie, showing the High Lama's funeral. Now, because this is printed from the original negative, you'll notice that there is a more pleasing range of tones in the image. The torches and the reflections of the torches on the ground have a sheen and a sparkle, which usually disappears when you copy old projection prints, or if you have materials that are too many generations removed from the original negative. Well, this is the original negative, and so you can see the full quality that can be obtained when you have material that's this good. We've put music underneath this, even though, of course, it was never seen by an audience or released to the public. It's just to make it more enjoyable for us to watch it today. A couple of the shots you just saw were included in the film, but most of these were not. And so it's interesting to see the kinds of things that Frank Capra shot that just never made it to the screen. We're about to see two sequences for Lost Horizon that were made by Frank Capra, but shown probably only at the Santa Barbara preview and then cut and never seen again. The sound for these does not survive, unfortunately, but I have got a copy of the shooting script, and I will try to do my best to read the lines so that you know what the actors and actresses are saying. In the first sequence, we see Isabel Jewell and Jane Wyatt. It shows how the character of the prostitute, played by Isabel Jewell, is changed by the goodwill of Sandra. And this was originally intended to come in the film. Actually, it happens just before the scene in which Edward Horton as Lovett talks to Mr. Chang and offers to teach geology to the children in the valley. So that's the point in the film where this comes. Gloria, played by Isabel Jewell, is on the left, and Sandra Bizet, played by Jane Wyatt, is on the right. Gloria says, "Excuse me, but you've been so kind." "I never cry." Sandra replies, "It's good for you. You'll have to learn how to laugh, too. That's more important." "I used to be able to laugh, but that was a long time ago. I guess I had it kicked out of me." Sandra says, "Well, we'll kick it right back. Some of it's kicked back already. I felt different ever since I got to this place." The music's helped a lot. Way down inside of me, I've probably been crying for music all my life. Only I didn't know it. There are lots of people like that. Now Gloria says something which is not in the shooting script, and Sandra replies. The next few lines also do not appear in the shooting script. Gloria says, "You know something? A year ago, a doctor told me I was going to die. I believed him because it didn't seem to make any difference. I don't believe him now." And Sandra says, "Of course not." Gloria says, "When I get back to the crazy world, I'll never forget Shangri-La. Or you." At this point in the script, the scene ends and switches to Lovett talking to Mr. Chang, proposing that he teach geology courses to the children in the valley. The second sequence, featuring Ronald Colman and Jane Wyatt, was originally intended to be placed in the film immediately after the scene in which Bob Conway's brother George has a sort of a tantrum and threatens to leave, and Bob and Mr. Chang are worried that he's going to, in effect, commit suicide if he has to leave alone. In the film as it now stands, it now dissolves to Bob talking to the High Lama and saying, asking what to do about his brother, and the High Lama tells him that he's no longer my problem, now he's your problem, because, in effect, I'm going to die, and I'm turning the Shangri-La over to you. Well, it's between those two scenes is where this next scene with Jane Wyatt and Ronald Colman was originally placed. And you can see it is sort of superfluous. He just goes to her and isn't sure what to do, and then says, "I know, I'll go see the High Lama." And so it does not add a lot to the film, and I'm sure that's why they cut it out. As this next scene begins, Conway starts across the room and suddenly hears Sandra's voice saying, "Bob." She says, "Now that's the sort of hug I like. Makes up for a whole day of waiting." "Why the gloomy face?" Conway says, "Sandra, if I decide to leave here, would you go with me?" "What are you saying, Bob? Of course you wouldn't. Stupid of me to ask. What's happened?" "The porters have arrived. George found out they won't take him, so he's going anyway. He wouldn't be safe just by himself. Oh, but you mustn't." At this point, a servant appears in the doorway and speaks in Tibetan. "Father Peril wants to talk to you." "Oh, I can't talk with him now." "Wait a minute, of course I will. I'll get Father Peril to let George have some porters. I'm sure he'll do it, if I promise to stay. Why not? No use in keeping the boy against his will." Conway says, "Wait for me here, darling." As he exits, Sandra watches him go, her face a mask of seriousness. We get a feeling she knows his errand is futile. And of course, this scene leads into the final meeting of Conway and the High Lama when the Lama dies.